Good morning, everyone. We'll begin our class this morning. So this is lecture number 36, and we are going to look at implementation of delta sigma modulator, and we will continue on to continuous time delta sigma modulators. We'll just touch upon continuous time delta sigmas, and probably, if time permits, we will wind up our discussion of delta sigmas with today's class. So we have already started looking at implementation. A couple of classes back, we looked at how a switched capacitor circuit can be a summer or a summer or a difference amplifier. It can basically summation or difference, and we also saw how each of the inputs can be appropriately scaled. And in yesterday's class, we also saw the need for scaling the inputs because you don't want the op amp to go and saturate, right? So now we will just, and in yesterday's class, I touched upon the need for a DAC. So if you have multiple feedback paths, it is almost as saying that you need multiple DACs, right? Of course, you can use a single DAC and then scale it however you need. But the fact still remains that your accuracy needs to be extremely good, right? Now, if and which is why I said that there is a lot of advantage, or there's a lot of motivation to go towards a single bit modulator. So what I'm going to do now is basically to say that basically to draw the implementation of a mod 2 DSM. Okay, what is mod 2? It is a second order modulator, right? Now, we all are familiar with how a second order modulator works, right? So you basically have the sampling switch, right? Now we are kind of making it more, practical oriented, that is implementation oriented. Let's say this is U, this is going to be your sampler at Fs, right? And let's say this is plus and minus. You have your first integrator, correct? And then what do? You have your second integrator, right? And then what happens? You have your comparator, right? So basically, in this case, let's say we are doing it's a single bit mod 2 DSM, all right? Now, how do we, so what happens is basically, okay, here since it's a single bit, you have a feedback loop like this. Let's say this is Y and this is V. Okay. All right. Now, how do you do this? How do you implement this? So let's look at a differential implementation. Okay. So what are the difference equations that we need? Okay. So we can write this as what the difference equations are. Okay, let's call this as x1. Let's call this as, of course, the input is called as y. Okay, all right. So let's just call it as x2 for now. Okay. All right. So v of n is written as what? So now let us also put in the sampling uh, mechanisms. But okay, let's first get it done, and then we will put in the sampling switches and so on. Okay. So v of n is nothing but the quantized version of x2 of n, right? That's it. Now, what is x2 of n plus 1? x2 of n plus 1 can be written as x2 of n plus some constant c1 times x of n minus a2 times v of n. Okay, let's say there is some a2 here, okay, to be consistent with our, right, a1 a2, right? So we can say that there is some scaling factor c1, right? So c1, and how did we do this? Here also we put 1, B1, right? So it is x2 of n because it's an accumulator, right? So the previous sample's value plus C1 times x of n plus minus A2 times the feedback signal. Now how would you write x1 of n plus 1? X1 of n plus 1 can be written as x1 of n plus let's say b1 times u of n minus a1 times v of n. So these are the difference equations which are going to govern this particular single bit mod 2 DSM. Right? Okay, now let us move into an implementation. Now, let's say this is the sampling switch U. So what happens? You basically go put it through a capacitor, right? Now, obviously, this has to. Um, so what do we do in? Let's say this is phase one, right? In phase one, what are you expected to do? You're expected to charge this capacitor, right? And in that phase, right? So let's say this is a fully differential one, and so of course for the sake of simplicity, we will not draw the other side, otherwise it just becomes very cluttered, okay? And this switch is connected to 2, okay? So let us first look at this particular which one, this particular section, okay? So you have two things which need to be summed, okay? So it is b1 times u of n minus a1 times v of n, right? Now this is b1 times, okay, let's say this is x1, right? So x1 of n plus 1 was given was x1 of n plus b1 times u of n. Now, how is this b of, let's call this as c1, let's say ca u of n minus a1 times v of n. Now, how is this b1 implemented? It is basically c1 by ca, correct? So that is going to give you this coefficient b1. Now, what are we subtracting with? It is with the previous value of v. And what is v? V is a, if you look at this particular thing, it is a single bit quantized signal, right? So let's say this also has some, clock coming in, Fs, right? Now, what is going to happen is, in a typical thing, what did we do? We said we take the digital out, pass it through a DAC, right? Let me use a different color, right? We have a DAC, and that DAC output is scaled appropriately, right? But in this case, since it is a single bit quantizer, what do you think will be the DAC? Yeah, you can try to answer. So what will be the DAC? For a single bit quantizer, what are the two levels? So how many levels are there in a single bit quantizer? Two levels. So what are the
Two.
two levels? It's 0
0 and
and
1.
1. So in voltage ways, I mean, in terms of voltage, what is it going to be? 0
0
and
and
VDD.
VDD.
Okay. So in the context of, let's say, so a two level quantizer, it has is VDD and 0. So this is for a single ended system. For a differential thing, how can you?
Plus
Correct,
VDD and minus
right?
VDD.
So either you charge it up to plus VDD or you charge it up to minus VDD. Basically, you just reverse the thing. So instead of VDD, we can say that there is a certain VREF, and the VREF can be equal to VDD or may not be equal to VDD. So let us make it generic and say it is plus VDD, plus VREF and minus VREF for a differential system. Okay. So now what we are going to do here is that, let me do this in black. Basically, this switch is either going to, so this is controlled by 2, and it's either going to charge it up to, I mean, it's either going to be plus VREF or it will be minus VREF. That is dependent on the bit setting. Okay. So in other words, let's say this is plus VREF minus VREF. So this is if V is high or if this is V bar. Okay. So this is how your DAC is basically implemented. Okay. Now, how do we continue with the rest of the circuit? So again, for simplicity, I'm not, you know, and drawing the differential side of things. But so here, what is happening is instead of connecting it to, you know, um, yeah. So instead of connecting it to something, to ground, you basically do it. You charge it up to. This is one way of doing things. You basically give it to VREF, okay, either plus VREF or minus VREF. Okay. All right. So here you have a single capacitor where both your DAC and your signal is being written. Okay. Now here what happens? This is the other phase. So this is connected to 2, right? Now this is the next capacitor, right? We have to do the next integrator. Okay. Now in the next integrator, let's call it a C2, right? Now the phases now become ulta basically, right? Let's call it CB, right? So now this is going to be controlled by switch 1, and let's say this is the black line, which is going to be controlled by V bar to VREF minus VREF, V2, this one, okay? And what do we have? Basically this side, when you're charging it, it goes to ground, okay? So again, the similar, sorry, similar thing happens on the negative side as well. This is basically going to go to a clocked comparator where the clock is basically the the complement of 2. Okay. So 1 and 2 are usually non-overlapping clock cycles. So if you look at 1, let's say this is 1, and 2 is going to be so on. So each stage is going to be complementary to each other. So this is a simple way by which you can implement your second order modulator with a single bit quantizer. Okay. Now the differential integrator can also be implemented in a little different way. So let me give you one more circuit. So this is a differential integrator. So we will only look at the integrator with the summing with let's say different separate input and DAC capacitors. Okay. So in this previous architecture, the DAC and the input is given to the same capacitor, right? C1 or C2. Now you can also have it in a different way where you have two separate capacitors. Okay. Now again, many times the when we talk about ground here, this ground can very well be common mode voltage. So let us look at one such fully differential implementation so that we get a very good idea of how it actually looks. Okay. So let us start with the so this is your fully differential op amp, right? So the way it is going to be is that you have, let's say, the switch. This is UP. Let's bring it up a little bit. This is UP, right? Let's say this is controlled by 1. So when this is going in, right? So this goes to capacitor C1. Now the other plate of the capacitor is going to be connected to, instead of ground, it has to be connected to the input common mode voltage. Now again, since we have okay, so this is going to be a 1 dot V bar, and this is going to be 1 dot V. Okay, so depending on whether it is V or V bar, you have Vref P or Vref N being connected. Okay, now here this is having switch 1 given to, let's call it as ICM. Okay, what is ICM? This is the input common mode voltage that is required for your op amp. Okay, now the same thing happens here. Okay, this is C2. It's given as C2 because these two values are identical. Let's say this is Vref P, this is Vref N, this is 1 dot V, this is 1 dot V bar. Okay, so this is going to be your DAC capacitor, and then you have your UN, right, which is going to be operated by clock phase 1, and this is going to go to this one. Okay. So this is the way that your inputs are going to get charged. So the voltage on your capacitor C1 can be written as what? This voltage is nothing but UP minus VCM, correct? And this is going to be UN minus VCM or ICM. Okay, let's just rename it to be VCM so that we are comfortable with the notation. So the voltage here is going to be like this. And what is the voltage across C2? This is either going to be Vref P or N minus VCM. Same way, this is going to be Vref N slash P minus VCM. That's the voltage across this capacitor. I think someone's mic is unmuted. So in case you have a doubt, you can ask, or else please try to mute it. Okay. So yeah. So now this is the way that inputs are driven. Now so this is the clock phase 1. In clock phase 2, what should happen? Basically we connect this to this one, and obviously this is going to be switch 2, right? And this capacitor anyway is going to be already present. Let us call it as some CA, right? And at this point of time, what should happen to your capacitors, like the other plate of the capacitors? So it has to go to some common mode, right? So instead of grounding, it basically has to go to some common mode voltage. Okay, so basically, let's say this. Say this is VCM, and this will also go to basically, say this is switch 2, and then you also have some VCM. Okay, now these three VCMs can be different if you want, okay, but they can also be identical. So typically you just make all of them identical. Alright. So this is how a fully differential integrator with separate input capacitor and separate DAC capacitance happens. Okay. Or you can have a single capacitance where you drive both input and the DAC voltages. Okay, but this is for a single bit DAC. On the other hand, if you have a multi-bit DAC, the DAC voltage will get, will come here. That's all. That's the only difference. Okay, so this is a fully differential operation. Wherever we had ground earlier, now we, instead of ground, we have common mode voltage. And in fact, all these three different common mode voltages can be different in case you choose to have so. Okay, all right. And so, any doubts, any questions? So there are different ways by which these things can be done, right? Different implementations and so on. Okay, and we have looked at two implementations. I think that should suffice for the purpose of the class. All right. Okay. Any doubts? Any questions? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So now let us move to what is the requirement of this op amp. Okay. So far we have looked at this op amp, and we just said, okay, there is an op amp. Now what is the requirement? How do you design this op amp? Can it be just arbitrarily any op amp? Okay. So obviously there are two constraints. One is what is the open loop gain that is required, and second, what is the bandwidth of the op amp, right? Now, bandwidth of the op amp, and thirdly, of course, slewing also. So both of these things will come into picture when you talk about time, right? So if you're trying to operate, so let us just first think about it in a more, uh, intuitive sense. Okay. See, if you want this whole thing to run at a very high speed, right? Then what should happen? This capacitor should charge and discharge very fast. Okay. And what is going to control the charging and discharging current? It is basically going to be slew rate initially, right? So slew rate will be, it can either be for a large signal swing, because these are, you're talking about fairly large signal swings, and you're talking about slew rate limitation. And once, so initially when let's say this CA or one of these capacitors is going to, CA is going to get charged, right? Initially it is the slew rate which is going to limit your performance. But once things come back to saturation, it is going to be the RC time constant which is going to control your settling behavior, right? So both are basically in the picture, and therefore depending on how fast you wanted to settle, you have to make sure that these things are going to work very, you have to design your op amp in such a way. Okay. So in the initial part of the settling is controlled by slew rate. The next part is controlled by your time constants, right? So that is what is important. All right. Now, secondly, where does the open loop gain come into the picture, right? So the accuracy of the signal, right? Accuracy of the charge transfer that happens is going to be dependent on this open loop gain of the op amp A, correct? Like this we have already seen. If you have a unity gain feedback or whatever, you have 1 plus 1 by A factor coming into the picture, right? So in other words, so let us look at the amplifier gain. So let's say in phase 1, right? So what happens? You have Vi of n charging up your capacitor. So this happens normally, right? On the other hand, you have something like this, right? Let's say this is V naught of n, and let's say this is C2. Okay. Now, because of the finite open loop gain of the op amp, the voltage at this node is going to be V naught of n by A minus V naught of n by A. Okay. And therefore, Q2 of n, the charge on C2 can be written as C2 into 1 plus 1 by A times V naught of n. All right. So this factor of 1 plus 1 by A or A plus 1 by A, this factor we have pretty often seen, right? Even when we talked about the switched capacitor circuits earlier in our discussion, we looked at the effect of a finite open loop gain. So basically what is going to happen is the in the phase 1, there is going to be a small residual voltage here at the negative terminal, which is given by minus V naught of n by A. And that value is going to be, let's say this is, and that value is going to reduce as A increases. Okay. In phase 2, what happens? In phase 2, you have this capacitor, right, going into your op amp. Let's say this is C2, this is C1, so charge is going to go like this, right? And therefore, let's say V naught of n plus 1 is given by earlier Q2 of n plus 1 divided by C2, but now you will have the factor 1 by 1 plus A. And in other words, you will basically have some residual voltage here, which is V naught of n plus 1 divided by A, right? So instead of having 0 here, you are going to have some error here. Okay. So in other words, you can kind of derive this. It is fairly simple. So the error that you get can be written as C1 by C2 into A plus 1. Okay. So as A increases, your epsilon or the error decreases, right? And therefore, in order to reduce this error, right, you have to make sure that this gain is as high as possible. Okay. Now, if you just derive with this, you will get a value of A, and usually it turns out to be that that value of A is not very strict. But what happens is there is what is called as dead bands when you talk about when you implement an actual delta sigma modulator, and if you put all those effects together, the requirement on the gain starts increasing. Okay, and therefore there is also, of course, you have the non-linearity of the ADC and all the other things. So the moral of the whole story is A should be as high as possible. Okay. One good thing is that it's not going to very dramatically change your performance. Okay, but having a very high gain is always helpful. Okay, even if your gain is not very high, uh, things are not going to literally break apart. Okay, but then it is always good to have a higher gain, because there will be some distortion happening in the ADC, and that distortion will be reduced by the open loop gain and other things. So all these things, especially the DC gain and other things, are quite important. Okay, so you try to design an op amp with as high a gain as possible, and that will give you the best possible results. All right. Okay. So now that we have talked about the op amp, so of course bandwidth and slewing, we know that depending on the frequency that you are operating, it turns out. Now so far we have looked at what is called as a discrete time delta sigma modulator, right? So which means that you first do the sampling, right? I think when we started off with the delta sigma modulators, I talked about this these two different implementations, where in a discrete time delta sigma modulator, you first do the sampling, and then you go ahead and do all your, all the loop filter and everything. So the loop filter is a discrete time loop filter, and then you have the quantizer, and then you have a DAC, and then you have the feedback. So the whole thing works in the discrete time domain. Okay, which is why we wrote all the equations in the Z domain, right? Now what happens is, let's say you're trying to sense very low frequency signals, let's say DC type signals. This discrete time delta sigma modulator works extremely well, right? But as you keep increasing the signal bandwidth, your Nyquist rate goes up, and also your OSR goes up, right? For example, if you need an OSR of 64, right? If your signal bandwidth is restricted to, let's say, some 100 hertz or 200 hertz, right? Uh, Let me give you an example. Let's say bandwidth is, let's say, 200 hertz, right? So the Nyquist rate is 400 hertz, right? So if you're going to use an OSR of let's say 128, now what will be the actual sampling rate? That will be 400 into 128, which turns out to be 51.2 kilohertz. This is a very reasonable one. You can definitely make your modulator to work in this particular area. Now take another case where your bandwidth is let's say 200 kilohertz. Okay, your Nyquist rate is going to become 400 kilohertz, right? If you use the same OSR, now your sample rate now becomes 51.2 megahertz. Now as you keep increasing this bandwidth even further, or if you keep increasing the OSR further, what happens is you start reaching the limits of how fast your your circuit can, your loop can work, right? Now higher the frequency, now what should happen? Your op amp should settle very fast, and so you need to pump up a lot of current, right? Your slew rate has to be very good. And so how will you improve slew rate? There is only one known way to improve slew rate. Okay, there are other ways also, but then the standard straightforward way is to basically increase the current. Right? You can have some, additional transistors to help you during the slew rate and other things, but they will also come and affect your gain and so on. Okay, so gain or stability and so on will get affected. So basically, you at the end of the day, you need to increase the current if you want to improve slew rate, right? And also, if you want to have a very high bandwidth op amp, we know that the UGB of the op amp is given by GM by CL, right? The unity gain frequency, we derived it, we saw that in the last semester's course. So way to do it would be to just increase for this given CL. Only way to increase your UGB is to increase your GM, and the straightforward way to increase your GM is to increase current, right? And so when you want things to happen very fast, and you need to burn more current in the op amp, let's just say higher power consumption in the op amp, right? And secondly, what else do you need to do? You need to charge and discharge these capacitors every cycle, right? So you also end up having this, kind of CV squared F type things happening, right? You need to charge up these capacitors, discharge these capacitors. So basically, cap, charge, and discharge power. Okay. So what can we conclude? As you increase the bandwidth of the signal, as you increase the sampling rate, right? You start encountering these issues. You basically have to do things very fast. Okay, and when you want to do things fast, you have to burn a lot of power. So the solution that has been proposed is, why not have a continuous time delta sigma modulator? Okay, now in a continuous time delta sigma modulator, it turns out to be something like this. So you do not do the sampling upfront. What you will basically do is to do the sampling after somewhere inside the loop. Okay, so what you will do is, you have, say, u of t now coming to a summer, and then you go to a, let's say, some m by s. This is an integrator, which is a continuous time integrator. Then you have the sampling switch, and then you have your ADC, and then you have to have your DAC, and this is going to come like this. All right. So this is a mod 1. This is, let's say, a mod 1 continuous time delta sigma modulator. Kind of a generic one can be written as what? U of t plus minus some h of s, and then you have your sampling, and then it goes through your ADC, then you have your DAC going back. Now what we see here is basically that this whole part is purely analog. Okay. The summer is an analog summer. It's not a discrete time summer. It is a continuous time analog summer, and it is a continuous time h of s. Okay, and this h of s typically, of course, we have seen in the z domain it's an integrator, and the s domain also it is going to be an integrator. And how do you build integrators using continuous time circuits? Basically, one of the most common ways of doing it is basically to use a structure which is something similar to this, right? You can basically have a DAC input, right? Sorry, you basically have an input to the op amp. This because of the virtual ground, it converts this to a current, and then this capacitor is going to integrate it, right? So you basically have the same kind of whatever we have discussed in the discrete time delta sigma modulator, the same techniques are used here. Okay. At the heart of it, what did we have? A we basically had a what? An integrator, Z inverse by 1 minus Z inverse with some addition and summing, right? You basically have the same thing here. You will have 1 over S type transfer functions, and the implementation. So again, what you will do is that the way in which you do is basically you do it in the Z domain, and then you use some transforms to go from the Z domain to the S domain. All right. You make sure that the impulse response of the transfer function in the Z domain is the same as the impulse response in the transfer function of the S domain. Okay. So appropriately, you will scale the, you will get the coefficients. Now all these things have been very well derived, and you can use toolboxes in MATLAB and other things. But basically what happens internally is that you match the two impulse responses and you get the same thing. Okay. Again, the loop filter can be implemented as any one of the types that we have seen, right? We have seen a CIFB, CIFF, right? And CIFFB, right? Same thing you will have. So let me give you a representative kind of a diagram, maybe so that you kind of understand how these things work. All right, but it is pretty much the same kind of thing. Let me draw a CIFB. So what happens is this is U. Let's say you have some B1. You have the summer. Okay. Let's say you have 1 over S. You have one more summer. You have 1 over S. You have one more summer, and you have 1 over S. Okay. Let's say this is going to be your ADC. And then what happens is you have you have a DAC with a DAC transfer function, right, with some k1, and let's say this is some p of t, it's the pulse transfer function, right? Yeah, oops, sorry. Okay, so let's say this is some k1 and this is some k2, this is some k3, okay. Now the coefficients of k1, k2 and k3 will be different from that of your whatever a1, a2, a3 that we derived for the discrete time system. But the only difference is basically now it is all in the continuous time domain, and these coefficients are derived from your Z domain. Okay, you do a transformation from the Z domain response to the S domain. Then basically what you do is you derive the transfer function in the S domain. You already have the transfer function in the Z domain, and you match the coefficients such that you get the same impulse response. All right. So this is a continuous time delta sigma modulator is used where high speed operation is required. All right. So we will probably just conclude with this, but there are different ways to use this integrator. One is this. The other one is basically to use a GMC integrator, but this has a lot of problems. This is very fast I mean, if you need very high speed operation, you use a GMC integrator, or else you use a normal active RC integrator. Okay. So with this, we'll conclude our discussion on the delta sigma modulators. Of course, it is not possible to extensively look at delta sigma. Delta sigma modulators is like an ocean. There is so much of advancement that has happened today. In fact, most of our audio chips, audio D to A converters, A to D converters are all delta sigma converters. But of course, in this particular course where we look at so many other things other than merely delta sigma modulators, I think this is a fairly elaborate coverage of DSMs that we have done. Okay. Any doubts? Any questions? All right. So what we will do is today we'll conclude our discussion on delta sigma modulators, and with that we are concluding our discussion on both A to D converters, D to A converters, and basically the field of data converters. Okay. As I mentioned, there's a vast sea of literature available, so many different designs that have been done in the last so many decades. And if you end up in an industry where you work in, data converters, you'll be actually, learning more about these things. Okay. Now the remaining few classes. So I think today is 27th. We have 2 more classes this week, and we have 4 classes next week, and probably a couple of classes in the following week. So that is around 8 classes, 8 lectures remaining. Probably one I will reserve as a tutorial lecture. So that leaves us with around 7 lectures. We will look at another vast field, but we will have an introductory glance uh, of high-speed I/O circuits. Okay. What are these high-speed I/O circuits? A simple introduction would be that if you look at the interface between your RAM and your processor, right? So DDR, you have DDR2, DDR3, DDR4. So this is a classic example of high-speed I/Os. Okay. So we will look at some of those circuits, and hopefully by today or tomorrow, I will post a paper on delta sigma modulators. Your end semester exam will be an open book exam, and like how you did for quiz 2, probably you'll have 2 papers or maybe 3 papers. Probably, yeah. Only thing is this time I think we will restrict to probably 2 papers, but this time the papers will be a little longer. It will be a full-length journal paper. So please start going through it as soon as I post it, and so make sure that you understand it well, and it will be an open book exam again. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.